Amazing Grace, one of the most powerful remnants of the transatlantic slave trade, a song that has sung of the suffering and salvation sought by millions of souls around the world for over 400 years. Whether you are Caucasian, African, Jewish, Latino, who hasn't at one moment in their life or another felt like they were lost at sea, unsure of whether refuge was even an option. How many of you like music? Show of hands. Okay, that's good. How many of you have a dream? Well, today nearly 80% of public schools across America have eliminated music and the arts from their curriculum. This decision has systematically destroyed the dreams of millions of youth in this country. Today, 60% of all urban youth don't graduate from high school, and only 10% of them are literate. In the state of Virginia, where I live, less than 40% of all urban fourth grade students read proficiently. With those staggering numbers, it will come as no surprise that 82% of all prisoners are high school dropouts. We all have a special song to sing, don't we? But depending on race, class, gender, or even geography, your access to quality education could directly affect your potential to sing the song that you were born to sing. This is why we must reintegrate music and the arts into the public school system, to get students excited about learning again, and to increase their chances of succeeding by bridging the academic achievement gap. Back to the song for a moment. Contrary to popular belief, Amazing Grace wasn't written by an enslaved African or even a freed slave. Although the words were written by European slave trader John Newton, the melody was written by those that had been oppressed. In accordance with the Willie Lynch method, slave owners believed that they could control us when they took away our freedom, our right to learn and speak our indigenous languages, but they made a huge mistake. We had a song to sing, and we refused to be silenced. Music has always played a critical role in celebrating our culture and identity. That's why I use music and the arts as a weapon for social change. Since 2006, my humanitarian organization, the Change Rocks Foundation, has taught over 250,000 vulnerable youth, educators, and advocates with critical life skills that help to bridge the gap and the disparities that fuel poverty. Skills like education, personal development, capacity building in 16 countries around the world, from Africa and Europe to North and South America. This approach teaches participants to think more creatively about how we solve everyday problems that affect their communities. So why music? Music and the arts are a metaphor for empowerment. Engaging in the practice of music and the arts actually makes us better human beings. Why? Scientists have actually discovered that music stimulates more areas of development in the brain than any other teaching tool. The arts are connected to everyday skills that we need to thrive. Through my research, I've identified over 10 areas of human development that are stimulated through music and the arts. Let's see how many you can identify during our 8 minutes together. But first, I have a confession to make. I hated school when I was growing up. You? Yeah? No? Yeah? Okay, yeah. Well, maybe hate is a little bit too strong, but I definitely didn't like school. Now, I loved my elementary school. The teachers at Grace Episcopal Day School could see at an early age that I loved music and the arts, so they encouraged me to explore that part of my development. By the 6th grade, I'd won the coveted role of Boo Bear in the school play. It was, don't laugh, it was the highlight of my career. My mother saw the same passion that I had for the arts, so she put me in every dance, vocal, piano lesson that she could afford. Unbeknownst to her, music not only stimulated chemicals in my body like serotonin and dopamine, which made me a happier human being, but the growth of neurons, which made me what? Smarter. And it also meant that I was more engaged in the learning process. I was actually excited about learning. The arts developed my confidence. It taught me about my history and culture. The arts taught me how to solve problems and therefore shaped my desire to become a social entrepreneur. Most importantly, the arts helped me define my voice. Now, as I reflect upon my disenchantment with school, all roads lead to one obvious fact. I simply didn't identify with what or how I was taught. My research shows an irrefutable connection between arts-engaged learning and bridging the achievement gap. My theory of creative socioeconomic transformation, or CSET, is simple. By finding the deeper connection between all things, we can actually create more effective and sustainable solutions. This approach allows participants to demonstrate what they've learned through their own language, their own culture, their own experiences, and how about the challenges that we often think limit our youth? They could give them the skills they need to succeed. Yes, the more engaged they become in the learning process, the more they retain. The study further showed that students increase their understanding by 21%. Students that are creatively engaged simply retain more information, and that increases their chances for success. Now, 18 months ago, my Humanitarian Organization was the first in the world to provide emergency relief education to children that had escaped massacres exacted by Boko Haram terrorists in Abuja, Nigeria. Day in and day out, I witnessed children engaged in physical violence. With every punch, a piece of my heart broke. But I knew that music could help me confront violence and many other issues that I had observed. Watch how I taught children a total of 10 skills. Count them, if you can find them, 10 skills in one musical lesson. You want to do fighting? Okay, so you say it to them really loud. Say, we say no to fighting.
We say no to fighting.
Arguing. We say no to arguing.
We say no to arguing.
Now, that was just a short clip, so I realized that it was very difficult probably to identify everything that took place, so I'm going to break it down for you. There was spelling, there was reading, math, science, psychological development, emotional development, and then something that you're going to see next. That is, how do we actually put these lessons into practice in practical scenarios? Now let's look at how students not only retained the lesson that they had been taught days earlier, but how a repetitive melody with a simple message, we don't want that here anymore, reminded them that their choices affect the stability of their very own communities. Ask him, is this good or is it bad?
It's bad.
It's bad. Amir, come on, get up. Get up. Now you and Amir, break that stick. Break it together. Break it. Shake hands. That's your friend. Yeah? That is your friend. When nobody else has your back. In just 2 weeks, that very simple melody transformed some of the negative social behaviors that were happening in that refugee camp, with children that were exposed to violence on a daily basis, to children that had been exposed to Boko Haram, who had slaughtered their families and left them with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Well, maybe you're still not a believer. So I want you to look at how this theory has helped my students improve their skills across several disciplines that I've taught. When we used music and the arts to teach at-risk students STEM subjects, students increased their test scores in as much as 30% in math and as high as 20% in science in less than 2 weeks. In my diversity classes at Virginia Commonwealth University, health science students increased their cultural competency skills by 48%. And in 16 countries where I've taught vulnerable youth, 30% of our participants have become social entrepreneurs, leaders who will break the cycle of socioeconomic injustice in their communities. Making quality education accessible isn't only a human right, but critical to social progress. Without those fundamental tools, we're in a boat without a paddle, or in musical terms, on a staff without a note to sing. Thank you.